Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My talk is going to be about a book which I wrote in 2010, which I called The Memoirs of Arnold Barobiscio, the passage of a Gibraltarian through life in Gibraltar between 1940, when I was born, and 2010. The book sold very quickly, so last November I published a second edition, limited edition, which is almost sold out. The first question that arises is, why did I write the book? Well, who of you hasn't at some time or other on relating experiences to friends or relatives been told, you can write a book about it? Well, I was told that, and I said, why not? The only worry I had initially was that I didn't want it to be a booklet, but a fully fleshed book. And I wasn't sure that I had enough material. In the event, the book has 200 pages and 10 chapters. Let me explain why it is called The Memoirs of Arnold Barobiscio and not Ronnie Barabich. The reason for this is that I felt that I was not a VIP, I was not a personality, so who was going to be interested in a book written by Ronnie Barabich? As it happens, my family, when they first came to Gibraltar in 1757, were registered as Barobiscio. So I decided I played about with words, and instead of Ronald Barabich, I named the book Arnold Barobiscio. I also felt that the book had to be written because it contains events and anecdotes which, if not recorded, would be lost for posterity, particularly to the younger generations. Let me make the point straight away that this is not my autobiography. It is things that happened between 1940, some things that happened between 1940 and 2010. You will appreciate that in the time allocated to me, I will have to go very quickly over the 10 chapters of the book. The first chapter I named Origins, Born into a World in Turmoil, the first years. This, of course, was 1940, the beginning of the Second World War. This part of local history is well documented, so I will not dwell on it. I was evacuated to French Morocco when I was a few weeks old, and eventually to London when I was 2 months old. I was repatriated in 1944 when I was 4 years old and met my father for the first time. The second chapter I call The Extended Family and Story Concerning Them. I will only refer to two events. One is an uncle of mine, who a brother of my mother, on my mother's side, who liked his drink, went to La Linea and had one more than he should have. This was just after the end of the Spanish Civil War, and he started singing the Internacional. He was arrested. I don't know whether he spent the night in jail, but his pass was removed, and he was never able to go to Spain again. He died quite young. The other anecdote is concerning my grandfather on my mother's side, whom I've never met because he died a couple of years before I was born. He was a staunch supporter of the Spanish Republic during the Spanish Civil War. He was probably a communist. And whenever the Republicans won a battle, he used to raise the Russian red flag, the hammer and sickle, on his terrace. When the Second World War ended, Castle Street, which incidentally is where I was born, was beflagged with Union Jacks and American flags. my grandmother, that is his widow, put up the Russian flag and said, the Russians also helped, which I think you will agree is a bit of an understatement. Right, we'll then go on to Arnold goes to school. I liked school. I didn't like examinations, and I didn't like homework. I went into the grammar school, into the A stream, but unfortunately, in a way, at that time, there were only 3 scholarships going and a couple of £250 yearly grants. You know, my position in class was number 9, so I never had a hope of going to university. Not that I regretted that. Obviously, the next step when I left school was going to work. I felt I had the vocation to be a school teacher, so I applied for a vacancy, but I was not successful. So I joined the city council as a clerk. Eventually, the city council merged with the government in 1969, and I had a successful career as a civil servant in government. The next chapter, I will not dwell greatly on it. I call the Gibraltar Regiment and the days of conscription. Let me make the point straight away that in 1959, when I was called up to do my national service, the Gibraltar Regiment was very different to what it is today. I was craving to go up. I changed my mind within 5 days and became a staunch supporter of the pressure group to abolish conscription. The next chapter I entitle Arnold Falls in Love several times. There is nothing romantic about this. I broke with my 5-year fiancé a few weeks before we were going to get married, and I spent 9 years of anguish, trauma, and turmoil with spells of acute depression and anxiety, until I married my first wife 9 years later in 1975. She gave me 2 children, but after being married for 27 years, she left the matrimonial home. A few months later, through the auspices of the group which then existed, With Dignity, which was a group supporting widows, widowers, single people, divorced and separated. Through that group, I met my present wife. We have been together now for over 15 years and married for over 10. And we love each other very much and we're very happy. Next chapter is Arnold, a mediocre sportsman. I was horrible at football, a very bad batsman, a mediocre fielder, and I used to bowl, but I was never an opening bowler. Surprisingly, without my glasses, of course, I boxed twice, 2 matches. One I won and the other one I lost. Then, after leaving school, I was part of the Grammarians Association hockey B team, and we won the championship 1 year. I then took up squash. In fact, I was the president of the squash club for 9 years, during which time the association was admitted into the European Squash Federation and the World Squash Federation. The next chapter, chapter number 9, we're coming to the end now, is Arnold, a political statement. I did not wake up one morning and say, right, Ronnie, you are left-wing. No. I examined my ideals, I examined my sympathies for the underdogs and downtrodden, and decided that I was very very much a man of the left. And then we come to the last chapter. This one I call Trivialities and the Things People Say and Do. I think those who decide to read the book will find it very funny, some even hilarious. I will just recall two incidents, both in court. One was this lawyer of many years ago, who in fact left Gibraltar and died not so long ago. He was defending a client who was accused of biting somebody else's ear. And he suggested to the court whether it could have been self-inflicted. The next and last episode, because I have no time for anything more, is when the judge asked a respondent, I don't know whether he was a policeman, a customs officer, or somebody else. He asked, who is making the allegation? And the respondent replied, Your Honor, I am the alligator. On that note, I will leave you, and I am confident that if you decide to read the book, you will enjoy reading it as much as I have enjoyed writing it. Thank you very much for listening.